This is the factory exhaust system that came with the Truckster. 2 cylinders, 2 pipes going into the muffler, 1 pipe coming out. It's all 1 inch. What you can't see is the bottom of the muffler, and the pipes are totally rotted out. So, got to do something. So this is kind of interesting. The exhaust pipe comes out here. The head, where I'm sure it bolts, is here. This is the fan cowling. And the fan cowling goes all the way across this one piece to that side. And there's a flange on here. So how in the world is this pipe fastened to the head where you can actually get to it? I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue, but I don't want to find out. So put a wrench on these bolts. They're really tight. They're rusted up. I'm just going to cut them off. I'm trying to save this flange. And I'll save this flange and weld it onto my new pipe. And this side is like super simple. The other side is not quite so simple. All right, so with the grinder, I was able to easily cut the top bolt off because I could get to it. And luckily, somebody put the bottom bolt this way, so the nut part was on this side. And I could get the grinder in there enough to cut the nut a couple of slices and break it off. Because if they'd have put it the other way, I have a hard time getting in there. It's pretty tight. Anyway, I got a good flange, and I even have a good gasket. Definitely will need some new bolts. So this side's, I think, going to be easy. I'm going to go straight out that a ways. The other side, let's go look. This is the pipe from the other side. This was, I think, inside the existing pipe. And I don't know why it's all smushed like that, unless the clamp was clamped on there so tight. So the existing pipe is pretty much impossible to get to. So that's the existing pipe, and it is, I don't know, I think if I get up in there a couple of inches, I think I can make something work. I mean, it's not ideal. I need to get that clamp off. Probably the only way is to cut it. Let's get the clamp off. Cannot get the grinder in there any kind of way. So I'm gonna get out one of my least favorite tools, the cutting torch. Try to cut that clamp off. I got it and nothing blew up. This is the tube I purchased to make my exhaust out of. It's EMT, electrical metallic conduit, I think it stands for. It's fairly thin wall. It's galvanized inside and out. It's super soft. It's designed to be bent. Like when I wired my shop back here. See all the bends. This is what it's designed for, is all these bends. It is 1/2 inch. I don't know how sharp I can bend it, but I'm gonna bend it. And the other thing is, it's available at Home Depot, so I didn't have to go to a steel shop with a $50 minimum, buy a 20-foot stick. I can just buy a 10-foot stick at the depot, 20-something bucks. So I need a sharp right angle bend to match the one that came off of here. I don't think I can bend it that sharp, but as long as I get it inside the frame, we'll be all right. So let's go see how sharp we can bend this thing. So I put it in my Harbor Freight Bend-O-Matic, and that didn't work at all. Crap. I think I'm gonna have to go to use some heat. So we'll start the galvanizing, and that's not a problem. I gotta get this bend some kind of way. Actually grabbed this from the side of the road early one morning, thinking I might could use these bends for the exhaust, but this stuff is
super thin and rusted away, and it's the wrong diameter. So this will go out front for the scrap iron, guys. Trying something new here. I have filled the pipe with sand and crimped the ends shut. And I've never done it, but it seems like I've read or heard or seen that it'll help keep the pipe from collapsing when I bend it. The ends are crimped shut, but they're not totally sealed, so if there's any steam, should be able to vent without blowing up. I think, I hope. Let's try it. It'll take a while to heat up because I got to heat all that sand up. It's cool.
So looking at the video footage, it took about 1.5 minutes to get it hot enough to start, and I worked on this for about 5 minutes straight to get the bend. I don't know, for some reason I have a hard time managing the torch with one hand. The weight of the hose, and I guess my hose is so old and stiff, and if you touch any of the little knobs or controls, you mess up and you have to start over. So this was a little bit of a struggle for me, but bending the pipe was easy. It was just dealing with the dang torch that I had a hard time. Who says you can't teach an old dog a new trick? That's the hardest part for the whole exhaust system, is that 190-degree bend. I'm not even really sure if it's bent tight enough, but we'll find out. Okay, I'm gonna cut it here at the pencil mark. I'm gonna weld that flange back on it. And on this end, I've ordered a little 1-inch threaded muffler, like a big giant lawnmower muffler, so I'll have to weld on a threaded coupling. I'll probably braze all this stuff. I think it'd be safer brazing it so I don't burn holes in this thin metal, but this is good stuff. All right, I got the flange cleaned up. I got the pipe held steady, and I think it's in the right place. I don't know, it probably could come down some on that end. I'm gonna put a little braze on it. I'm gonna use the torch and some brazing rods and go fit it before I get it totally brazed. So I just did a beautiful job of brazing this flange on here with the torch. Not even a brazing torch, I was using a cutting torch. But anyway, I got it on here, it's brazed on well, and it fits just right. And it's still pretty hot, but there'll be a little flare out right here, and there'll be the adapter, and I'll screw the muffler on right there. And the muffler should be at my house tomorrow if Amazon didn't lie. Now this side, I don't think there's gonna be any welding involved. I think I'm gonna have to shove the pipe up in that existing pipe or go on the outside of it. Maybe I can go on the outside of it. I don't know, this one's gonna be different. This coupling that was on the original system, this may be the key. Maybe I can slip it over that rotten pipe that's under the deal, and I can put the new pipe in here. And actually I could braze the new pipe so the only leakage would be around here, and that's not enough to worry about because this is an outdoor piece of equipment. And it's underneath the bottom, and there's no closed cab. As long as it doesn't leak enough to like catch my hydraulic tank on fire, but that's not gonna happen. I don't know if you can see. This is the end of the exhaust pipe, and it's too mangled up to get the coupling over the top of it. So I'm cutting it off with a hacksaw blade. Not a hacksaw, because it won't fit in here. Just a blade in my gloves, and it's going very slow, but it's going. I got to cut it off so I can get to some clean metal, so hopefully that coupling will fit over it.
Got it. So I had to cut this off because the end was too mangled to get the coupling on. Now let's see if the coupling will go on. If I remember where I put it. But I think it'll go on. So I took my little baby belt sander and put a bevel on the inside of this thing. And I think that might help for it to go on the old rusty pipe. The coupling is so close to going on, it's just so close. So I think I stretched it a little bit. I hammered this galvanized pipe fitting in there. It wouldn't go in until I hammered it. So I think I stretched it. Now, if I can get it out, maybe we'll be somewhere. Hopefully this is the last part of the puzzle. We got 2 mufflers that take a 1-inch pipe. I got a 1-inch pipe. I'm gonna cut it in half, 1 for each side. I don't know anything about sizes or horsepowers, but I do know that all the exhausts used to go out 1-inch pipe, and now we're going to be going out 2 2-inch pipes, so hopefully I'm not restricting anything. So on the right side, the easy side, I got my flange snugged up with 2 bolts, and the pipe is like perfect. I don't have to bend it or anything. I think I'm just going to cut it off right there and weld this right here. It'll be protected from hitting the ground pretty much. Shouldn't hurt anything. Can't imagine that much hot air coming out this engine. So I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna weld this super straight, or straight for me, and be able to put it back on. And the hanger, which is right here, hopefully I can take off and put right here and reuse it. And I don't have a hanger for the other side. I'm gonna have to make something. I'm set up ready for the braze. I'm gonna use the TIG torch. I don't know why I keep swapping between the gas torch and the TIG torch, but I'm gonna TIG braze this fitting, hopefully. Got side 1 tightened up with the gasket, and the pipe is pointing up too far, and I can't get the muffler on, so I'm gonna take it back off. I'm gonna bend it down a little bit somewhere in here. I don't need very much at all. I'll take it back off again. All right, let's see what we did. Let's see if it's been enough. All right, I'm under here for the 57th time, and I think I got something that'll work. I think it'll go right there and go right there. It's almost touching right there, but if I can slip a piece of rubber behind it or something. So what I need to do is take the muffler off and heat this in red hot or hot, and get a hammer and beat it on, because it's a friction fit onto that existing pipe. And cross my fingers and hope it works. Couldn't really videotape that, but it went on further than I had hoped. I got it really hot with the propane torch, not quite red hot, but hot. I found this fitting that screwed onto the end, so I didn't have to worry about damaging the threads, so I could use a metal hammer. And I think it might have gone all the way up to that coupling, as far as that coupling would fit. So I'm gonna put the mufflers on it. We're gonna set it down, start it up, raise the bed where I can see better, and see what we need to do about some sort of supports. Side number 2 has been a pain in the rear, but I got it. So that connection is not like super rigid. This connection is pretty rigid. I ended up using a unistrut clamp, piece of unistrut, and 2 bolts back into this main frame. And this is I think I got it. So on this side, I got a little play because it's hooked with rubber, but the flange at the engine is rigid. So this can wobble a little bit, and it's the opposite on this side. This thing is not totally tight. I think it's like 95% gonna hold most of the exhaust, but this is rigid. So let's get out from under this little car. So I downloaded a decibel app on my phone, started it up, and put the phone right at the exhaust on both sides. And this is what I get, 102 decibels, a little disappointing. This looks like a muffler. I bought 2 of these, but it's not, it doesn't muffle. It's basically, I don't know if you can see it, it's just straight through. So the Truckster's too loud. This doesn't look like a muffler, but I'm hoping it'll be, or a pair of them. There's 2. I'm gonna cut this 8 inches long and put some baffles in it and try to make it into a muffler.
Here's my logic on quieting down the exhaust. Originally, both cylinders ended up going out of a 1-inch tailpipe. I'm going to put 2 exhaust systems, each with its own 1-inch. So in my feeble mind, That will be quieter because the gas won't be flowing so fast. And then I'm making these little mufflers with a couple of partitions in them to further slow down the flow and to confuse the sound waves. And that's all I know about exhaust. Cutting this piece of sail mast in half. Thank you, Katrina, for sinking this boat. And the partitions need to be like 2.5, 3 inches wide. I didn't have that, but I had a bunch of these 1.5 inch strips left over from another project, so I just cut them to length and I overlapped them until they were the right width and tacked them in place, because the inside of this muffler does not have to be pretty.
The fact that we won World War II when all the welders wore this type of welding hood, it's amazing, because these things are just terrible. You can't see. Of course, I can't see anyway, but you can't see even worse with one of these on. All right, here's my theory. End plate on both ends, intake right here. The exhaust gas goes down this channel, which is much, much bigger than the exhaust pipe, so it's gonna slow down and lose some energy. And some of the gas is gonna blow out of these holes, further confusing the sound waves. And then it's gonna make a U-turn and come this way, dealing with some of the gas blowing in here, and then some of the gas will go that way, and then it'll make another U-turn and go out this way, and there'll be a plate on the end, and the exhaust will be right there. Now, I don't know what I'm doing. It should be quieter, and it was easy enough to try it, so I just got to weld the two halves together, get an end plate. Now, for this, where it ties into the exhaust pipe, I will need a female coupling. And when I built my T-top for my boat, I had like 20 of them, and I melted them all down into aluminum. So I'm gonna have to go to electrical supply house and see if they'll sell me 1 or 2 couplings. I could use one and cut it in half, or I could use 2. I'm gonna put these together and put some ugly welds on them, and call it a day. Found a piece of aluminum to cut my 4 end plates. I'll have to patch all these holes, but it doesn't have to be pretty. And before I weld it on, I probably should drill and weld the female coupling, just in case something goes wrong. And I don't have them, so I have to go get them tomorrow. But I can start cutting these sheets out. So the skill saw makes a lot of noise, and it cuts this aluminum no problem really, but you really got to watch these little drops, because if they get sucked up in the saw, they'll do a lot of damage. I learned that the hard way a few years ago. So as you cut them, I knock them out the way, and yeah, we got them cut. We need to do some grinding or sanding or something. I've found that when using a hole saw, in aluminum, the aluminum tends to melt and stick to the little teeth, and then you can't go anymore. You have to take a screwdriver or something and knock the little melted blobs off. So I use a lot of water, a lot of soapy water as a lubricant. Oil's probably a better lubricant, but then that messes with your welds, so I use soapy water. And just got to take your time and keep the bit area clean to try to keep it from clogging up and getting hot. So I got the intake end of both of them welded up. I don't know if it makes a difference between the intake and the exhaust. And I'm going to drill a hole on the other end like this and weld this up. I think it might actually, I think it's going to work. So I kind of shot myself in the foot. When I did my T-top for my boat, and you probably saw that I bought a bunch of rigid aluminum conduit. If you haven't seen that one, you need to see it. It's a pretty good little video. And every stick of conduit comes with a coupling on the end. And I didn't use the couplings. I took them all off, put them in a bucket, got tired of looking at them, and now they're in here. I melted them. Well, it just so happens that you can't just buy the couplings. You got to buy a joint of pipe with a coupling on it. That's 30-something bucks a piece. That's 60 bucks for 2 little couplings, so that ain't happening. So I went to the depot and I bought a hole saw, the correct size, and I bought a black piece of a black nipple, because this is what I have sticking out of the engine right now is a male thread, and I cut some grooves in it like it was a tap, and I was able to tap it in there, so it's pretty darn strong. So I'm going to weld this little square over this hole, and I think that's going to be I think that's going to work. It's going to save me. So here I'm using this is how I threaded it. I used my Wilton Thread-O-Matic here to try to, one, keep it straight, apply a lot of pressure. The aluminum's definitely softer than the black iron pipe, although the black iron pipe is not particularly hard, but by cutting those grooves in the threads it makes some sharp ridges, and it actually threaded in there pretty good. So in the back of my mind I was thinking this is a temporary fix and this wasn't going to hold up, but it did hold up. The muffler screwed on rigidly. I ran the machine for a few hours and no sign of anything coming loose or unthreading or vibrating loose. So this is every now and then things work out. All right, the mufflers are on. This one is just fine. It's almost perfect in its location. The other one is not bad, but it's pointing at the tire, which is probably not ideal. Be nice if I could get another half a turn on it, but I don't think I can. It's gonna break. It's on there for now, but I gotta find a coupling because there's not enough threads in there. This thing's gonna fall off like it is, but at least I can play with it, see how it sounds. So we turn on the Decibel app in the phone, put the phone by the exhaust, start it up, and look at this. It is actually louder than it was before. Who would have thunk it? Not me, for sure. I guess I'll end up buying a muffler because it's too loud.
Alright, so in spite of that failure, I have had luck with the carburetor flooding issue, so we did load up the Truckster, brought it to the country, went for some rides, and it's doing pretty good.